Shalom from Israel to all of the Daystar viewers around the world. I'm Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer and founder of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 25:5, "Lead me in your truth and teach me, for you are the God of my salvation. For you I wait all the day long." And God says in Zechariah 8:16, "These are the things that you shall do. Speak out the truth to one another. Judge with truth and judgment to peace in your gates. And always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was in Japan last week, where he warned world leaders that Iran is a nuclear threat, just like North Korea. Netanyahu and his Japanese counterpart, Shinzo Abe, released a joint statement expressing their strong hope for the early resolution of various issues of concern regarding North Korea, including its nuclear development. Netanyahu said he understands that Japan is facing a very serious nuclear threat from North Korea, and he said that the Iranian nuclear program also poses a clear and present danger.
The International Atomic Energy Agency and Iran have concluded another round of negotiations without achieving significant progress. The Vienna meetings also ended without evidence that Iran is undertaking concrete steps toward transparency and cooperation, as it has previously agreed. The hardline Islamic Republic consented to a 15-step program designed to provide the IAEA with a clearer picture of its nuclear program, but so far, the UN watchdog organization apparently remains unconvinced that Iran's atomic development is for purely peaceful purposes, as it has long maintained. Israel has expressed grave concerns that Tehran is using the negotiations as a ruse to stall the international community as it clandestinely races to complete nuclear weapons to potentially wipe Israel off the map, as its leaders have stated in the past. The Jewish state takes those threats very seriously and has repeatedly asked the P5+1 nations to push harder in their efforts to prevent Iran from developing the capability to do so.
The leaders of the Catholic and Orthodox churches have announced that they will meet in Jerusalem later this month. This historic conference will be an attempt to reconcile after nearly 1,000 years of division. The Vatican announced that Pope Francis and Bartholomew I will celebrate Mass together at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in the Old City of Jerusalem. Although the two major streams of Christianity still disagree on several fundamental issues, both sides claim that they have made great progress toward reconciliation.
Israel has declared parts of the Golan Heights a closed military zone. According to the IDF Northern Command, fighting in the Syrian civil war has intensified close to the border with Israel, and the army fears the further spillover of violence into the Jewish state. There's been a dramatic increase in the number of wounded Syrians attempting to cross over into Israel for medical treatment, another sign of the escalating conflict. These latest developments come as Syrian President Bashar al-Assad prepares for national presidential elections amid fallout from the devastating civil war. Over 100,000 Syrians have been killed, millions more have been displaced, and hundreds of thousands are reportedly starving in the streets. All the while, Assad is investing millions into his electoral campaign, and the war-torn streets are littered with flyers and billboards proclaiming him as the sole leader of the Syrian people.
Shin Bet, the Israeli Internal Security Agency, thwarted a Hamas-funded terrorist attack last week. According to security officials, 2 incarcerated terrorists were planning to kidnap Israeli soldiers in Judea and Samaria. The Islamic extremist received confirmation that Hamas would fund their operation, and the cell was hard at work organizing family members and friends to secure weapons and to recruit terrorists to perpetrate the attack. This development is evidence that Hamas is, in fact, a vicious terrorist organization determined to destroy Israel through violent acts of terrorism.
Palestinian youth are being exposed to children's programming on the official Hamas channel, teaching them violence and hatred toward Jews. The program, called Tomorrow's Pioneers, broadcast on the Al-Aqsa channel from Gaza, using a bumblebee character to appeal to young children while advocating that they should shoot all of the Jews and beat them until their faces bleed. The recent reconciliation between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority has already begun to expose more moderate Palestinian families to this type of propaganda of hatred through television and by the circulation of pro-Hamas newspapers. Yochanan has more on that story.
Yes, Aaron, the Hamas daily tabloid paper Palestine has reappeared in PA-controlled areas of Judea and Samaria. The pro-Islamist paper had been banned by the Palestinian Authority for 7 years. But following the recent reconciliation between the PA and the Hamas terrorist organization, the paper has resurfaced. It is important to note that Hamas rejects the existence of Israel, and this sentiment is prevalent throughout the pages of this newspaper.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry met with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in London last week in the wake of Abbas' Fatah Party announcement that it will be forming a government with the Hamas terrorist organization. The talks come less than a month after peace talks brokered by Washington fell apart. One of the issues discussed was the jeopardy of U.S. aid to the Palestinians now that they are uniting with an official terrorist organization. U.S. law prohibits financial assistance from benefiting Hamas or any entity effectively controlled by Hamas. The Palestinians are facing a grave economic crisis, and the authorities' projected debt will amount to $1.6 billion by the end of 2014. The PA is heavily reliant on the $500 million that it receives in U.S. aid each year. The loss of these funds, coupled with the dramatic decrease in aid from Arab countries, paints a dismal picture of the future of the Palestinian economy. Unemployment in the territory is nearly 30%. And those who work for the PA are already receiving only partial salaries.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has offered Israel's assistance in recovering 276 Nigerian girls who were kidnapped 4 weeks ago by Islamic terrorists. A statement released by Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan said Nigeria would be pleased to have Israel's anti-terrorism expertise deployed to support its ongoing operations. This is not the first time that an African nation has welcomed Israel's help in terrorist situations. When Islamic fanatics laid siege to a mall in Kenya last year, Israeli commandos assisted Kenyan authorities in neutralizing the situation. Israel also provided medical aid after the devastating attacks on 3 Christian churches in Nigeria on Christmas Day 2011. The Boko Haram terrorist organization has claimed responsibility for kidnapping the young girls. This violent Islamic terrorist organization has waged war against Nigeria's Christian population, murdering more than 1,500 people this year alone.
The Jewish Agency is reporting a dramatic increase in the number of French Jews immigrating to Israel. According to the semi-governmental organization responsible for the absorption of Jewish immigrants to the Promised Land, 1,407 Jews left France for Israel during the first 3 months of this year, as compared with just 353 in 2013. The Jewish community of France is the largest in Europe, but a sharp rise in violent anti-Semitic attacks is contributing to mass emigration of Jews from the country. Following increasing anti-Jewish sentiment and several of the most brutal attacks in recent history, French Jews are being warned to not wear their traditional kippah skull caps, prayer shawls, or any other identifying clothing in public. Leaders of their community are publicly calling on their fellow Jews to move to Israel, where they can practice their faith safely.
Israel has acquired and successfully tested an Atom laser cannon. The device, manufactured by Lockheed Martin, uses a laser beam to destroy enemy targets. The Israeli Navy tested the New Age weapon in the Mediterranean Sea last week and reported that the small boat targeted by the laser beam was neutralized within seconds. This weapon has many applications. It can be used to dismantle incoming rockets, hostile ships, and UAVs. The addition of the Atom laser cannon is part of the Israeli Navy's program to enhance its advanced weapons capabilities. Tori Bruno, the president of Strategy and Defensive Missiles at Lockheed Martin, said the test of the Atom system showed that laser beams are ready to start handling significant military needs. The breakthrough of revolutionary technologies is a hallmark of innovation.
And that concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here once again in a beautiful day in Jerusalem on our rooftop studio. My guest today is Carrie Summers, COO of the Museum of the Bible. Carrie, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh. Enjoy it.
Tell us a little bit about what is the Museum of the Bible?
It's a non-for-profit. It's only 4 years old. It has the holding of the largest private holding of ancient manuscripts in the world. We have about 44,000 items. And we call it 4 legs of the table. It's composed of research through our Green Scholars Initiative. We have about 100 scholars under contract that does research for us to find the latest and new discoveries. We have then a curriculum that we're developing for the U.S. school systems. This will be an elective, and it'll be the Bible, the history of the Bible, impact of the Bible, and the stories of the Bible that can be taught as an elective in public schools. So that's leg 2. Leg 3 is our traveling exhibits. We have one here in Israel called Book of Books. We just opened one last week in the Vatican, and it travels throughout the world. And then our 4th leg is probably our biggest undertaking, and that's a new museum that's under construction in Washington, D.C., 2 blocks from the Capitol and 2 blocks from the Smithsonian Aerospace Museum, opening in April of 2017. So those 4 legs make up the Museum of the Bible.
You're doing something really exciting here in Jerusalem. You have the exhibit, the Book of Books, at the Bible Lands Museum. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Book of Books is an exhibit of about 180 items. It's composed of ancient manuscripts. The theme of the Book of Books is the Jewish roots of Christianity. And with that, we have the story, and we have the artifacts, starting from the Dead Sea Scrolls, moving forward all the way up through the Gutenberg Press, and we have a replica of the Gutenberg Press here. But it's a wonderful story through a very, we call it immersive environment, showing the cultural setting of the day through scrims and art and other things, and then these ancient manuscripts. And it's something that most Israelis have never seen. In fact, most people in the world have never seen this, and it just shows that there's more commonality between the Jewish faith and the Christian faith than most people think. And it's our effort. It's non-sectarian. We just want to show the facts, show the items, and then you make your own decision.
We see at the Bible Lands Museum that Christian tourists are coming from all over the world to see this exhibit. Why is this so important for Christians to be a part of this?
Well, first of all, we found out that most Christians have really very little knowledge of the history of the Bible or the impact of the Bible. Now, they may go to church, they may go to Sunday school, but to understand that thousands of people gave their life for the composition of the Bible, and they just don't understand it. The second is, where did the Bible come from? How did it get to be what it is today? And I know it's a shocker to a lot of people, but when you say it has this overwhelming Jewish influence, it's based upon the Jewish text, we've been quite shocked on how many Christians look at you and say, really? And so it's our effort is just to show the facts. We're not trying to present any case, which is quite different than some. We just let the facts speak for themselves, and it's quite overwhelming when you're able to do that.
Your big project is now focused in Washington, D.C. It's building this museum there. At the same time, the current administration is doing everything to take the Bible out of Washington, D.C. Are you facing any resistance from this?
You know, we're not. It's a legitimate museum. In fact, we've now been before many of the various subcommittees and hearings in Washington in order to get permits and all. It's a process. And to our surprise and delight, we've been very encouraged by people who are not necessarily, say, supporters of the Bible, but they are supportive of a valid representation in a museum-type setting and showing the history of it. And we have well over 100 academics working on this. It's the best in the world. So when people come there, they're going to see a little mix of museum, a little mix of Disney-esque, a little mix of an Apple store on how it's laid out, and it's got video rooms and movies, 500-seat lecture halls. So it's quite different than most museums, and I think because of that, establishment that we've chatted with in Washington have a great respect that we are doing something that's different and very entertaining, but also very academically correct.
You know, we take pride in the fact that you don't just reach out to practicing Jews or Bible-believing Christians, but also mainstream people. Right. What kind of effect will this have on the mainstream in Israel and all over the world, not just Israel?
It's it's an example. We have the largest private collection of Torah scrolls in the world. And somebody said, why, we got 5,000 of them. And why would you have 5,000? Well, we want to show how the disbursement of the Jews, and you can follow it through the writings within the scrolls. We're doing research on the Torah scrolls. And as far as we know, we're the only organization in the world that are doing that. So the Bible in total, so it's not a Christian thing. The Bible in total is of high interest to us. The Jewish text, the Greek text, the translations, and how it went into Armenia and how it went into other parts of the world. These are all great interests. So we believe that Washington, D.C. is a melting pot. I think just slightly over half of the attendance in Washington at museums come from people who are not Americans. So we're designing it with that in mind, with translation, so forth, so forth. And what we're finding is if you just view the Bible for a second and say it's the largest distribution of any book in history, it's been the most debated book in history, it's been the most banned book in this history, it has been burnt, it's been tried to destroy, even up to 48 and 44, 48 in the Holocaust, it's been tried to destroy, and it continues to live on, and it continues to be the greatest selling book in history, even today. What is this book about? And we're challenging people, come in and learn about it. And you might find something that's quite amazing to you, and we already know they will. So our job is to present something that is highly entertaining. Sounds odd, you would use the word Bible and entertainment in the same breath, but it is, and do it in a way that people say, you know what, that's a pretty cool book, and that's what we want to talk about.
Well, Kerry, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, this is I come to Israel every few months, and I've been coming for 31 years. I asked recently, maybe a couple years ago, about how many trips I'd made to Israel through the passport control for a particular reason. And since then, we've sort of kept track. I think this is trip 90 trips. And there's a scripture in Isaiah that says, "He who blesses my people, I will bless." And part of that blessing is to come to Israel. He blesses you. And I've seen this over and over and over. So my message to the world is come to Israel. I gave a speech many years ago, and I used a slogan in that speech when I closed at the National Religious Broadcasters Conference. And I said, if you come to Israel, beware, because you will never be the same. And I challenge people even today, come to Israel, and literally, you will never be the same.
Thank you, Kerry, for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh.
And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
This is Jerusalem, Israel's capital city. It's an ancient and modern treasure that is beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Up next, shining light from Israel.
Did you know that there is a particular place on Earth that God seems to be really fond of? That's right, an everyday place with streets and buildings and people. Not a metaphor or a hypothetical, a geographical location. And it's called Jerusalem. Over the years, all sorts of wars have broken out around Jerusalem, and many terrible things have happened to this city. So naturally, many efforts have been made to fix the problems that keep popping up.
I'm okay.
Like the passing of hundreds of UN resolutions, or awarding the Nobel Peace Prize to Yasser Arafat. Heck, even Bill Clinton tried playing his saxophone when all else failed. But it seems like the more we try to fix things, the worse they become. Now, we could continue coming up with elaborate strategies and complex plans to restore peace and well-being to Jerusalem, but sometimes the most complex problems are solved in the simplest ways. So what we decided to do, and what we're asking you to do, is the simplest thing anybody possibly could do. Pray. That's right, pray. You might be thinking, well, I live in Ireland or New Zealand or Nebraska. Why should I pray for a city I've never been to? Well, to give credit where credit is due, the idea has been around for a while, and it turns out we're actually commanded to pray for Jerusalem. See, we told you God was fond of them. And then there's always the possibility that praying for peace and goodwill is always the right thing to do. Now, we thought that praying for the peace of Jerusalem might sound complicated or like a lot of work, so we had the bright idea of starting small and keeping it super simple. What if we began by praying on one day every year? Just one. Sort of how we in America eat turkey the fourth Thursday of every November, or how Canadians celebrate their national animal on Beaver Day, the last Friday in February. What if we prayed for the peace of Jerusalem the first Sunday of every October, just making it a part of our prayer service that week? God might think it's really cool to have his children praying in different languages, in different ways, for the very same thing. And while some remain skeptical that prayer makes a difference, hundreds of thousands have already committed to pray for the peace of Jerusalem this one day a year. Who knows? Maybe prayer will remind us that we're not in charge of the world to begin with. Or maybe prayer will move God's heart to do something wonderful in Jerusalem. Or maybe, just maybe, prayer will change us. Let's find out. Sign the prayer resolution and mark your calendar for the first Sunday of every October, and join us and the world as we unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem.
Anywhere else, this would be a vacation by a lake. But this is the Sea of Galilee. The wonders of Israel are beyond belief. There's a little bit of Israel in all of us. Come find the Israel in you.
Please stay tuned for the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Every year in spring, sirens sound throughout Israel and life comes to a complete stop for 2 minutes as Israelis around the country pause to remember the tragedy of the Holocaust. Israeli dignitaries and foreign leaders gather in the Warsaw Ghetto Square Memorial at Yad Vashem to honor the 6 million slain victims of the Holocaust.
I have with me today Ms. Susanna Kokkonen, the director of the Christian desk at Yad Vashem, and it's a great joy and a great pleasure to have you with us. Welcome on our show today.
Thank you.
Susanna, tell me, Yad Vashem made a strategic decision some years ago, which Yad Vashem, our listeners need to know that it's the biggest institution here in the land to commemorate the Holocaust. And they made a decision just a few years ago to establish a Christian desk here at Yad Vashem. This is a historic step for Yad Vashem, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is. Many Christians since the 1990s had been coming to Yad Vashem. We had movies like The Schindler's List coming out, and people were really interested in having a program at Yad Vashem when visiting. And there wasn't anything specifically for them. And so in 2006, in cooperation with the ICEJ, Yad Vashem established the Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, a Christian department here at Yad Vashem. And now we have programs for Christians, and we invite them to join us in all of the special events and commemorations, as well as to learn more about the Holocaust.
Well, to think that the institution which commemorates the biggest atrocity which we Christians did to the Jewish people, that they have a Christian desk, was it wasn't an easy decision for them to do that.
Well, it was a very big decision, so big in fact that they needed the permission of the Israeli Prime Minister. At the time it was Ehud Olmert, and he gladly gave it, knowing the ICEJ and the ICEJ's work. And so Yad Vashem was able to start this activity. Initially nobody really knew what it was going to be, what precisely would this department be doing, but now it's becoming more and more a very established part of Yad Vashem's daily activity.
Again, I want to invite you to support Yad Vashem and the very important cause of this great institution. Become a blesser of Israel and become somebody who reaches to the very heart of the Jewish nation. The Bible says, I will bless those who bless thee. I will return the blessing which you bestow upon my people. And God promises a special blessing to us as we reach the wounded soul of Israel, which is found here at Yad Vashem, commemorating the death of more than 6 million Jews 70 years ago. Visit our website at www.icej.tv and become a blessing for Israel. May the Lord bless you richly here out of Zion.
Please consider supporting the work of the Christian Desk at Yad Vashem. Become a friend of Yad Vashem with a donation of $25. Adopt a tree commemorating the righteous among the nations for a $100 donation. Or for a $1,000 donation, help us to record the testimonies of Holocaust survivors from around the world.
What an exciting place to be, what an exciting place to visit. I'm talking to you about the land of Israel, the place where Jesus was born, and Jesus did his full ministry and went up to heaven. We'll come back one day to this very same land. Now you have the opportunity to come and visit this place in the summer tour 2014. This place is colorful, it's tasty, it opens the Bible in a new way, and it is very diverse. I will give you a small tour. Now, we're in the desert. The beach, culture, history, big city life, awesome food. Israel is not just camels, hummus, and desert. Israel is also modern society. And one of the examples is the city of Tel Aviv, having beautiful beaches like this. In the summertime, these beaches are packed, and you can enjoy also this beautiful beach when we come to the summer tour, to this exact same place. So come along the summer tour 2014 to enjoy the land of Israel.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.